I am the creator of the Deep End, and welcome to Possibly Asked Questions, because I am too small for people to ask these in general. So, this will cover kind of questions that people might have. So, if I didn't already answer this at like the bottom of one of the deep dives, this is where you would find most of them. So, first things first, why did I leave in the mistakes? And as much as I could have easily just edited them out and like redid the voices and all that, I wanted to kind of like remind people I am a human who makes mistakes. If I just showed you a perfect thing the whole time, it would kind of feel like cheating to me. I I didn't want this to be treated as like a production studio level quality of content, but rather me showing my personal abilities and seeing if anyone finds intrigue in this. So, as much as like I would want to fix a lot of these, I would like to fix it with a team, not just myself. So, next question someone possibly could ask is, do I plan on continuing this? Right now, I'm on the fence. I said in one of my deep dives that if I were to continue this, then it would be the format where I choose songs first and then craft the story around that, because that is completely original, completely brand new, takes a lot less mental stress. However, it took a lot of my free time to make these shows, and it was kind of hurting my other college classes. So ultimately, I feel like if I were to continue this, it would have to be like bi weekly. But if I were to fully continue this, then either I'm getting paid to do it or I have literally nothing else in my schedule. Next question someone could possibly ask is, could I make fan art? I'm going to tell you this now. I am not copywriting anything of mine. None of the characters, none of the stories, none of it is copywritten. So if you wanted to make fan art and then proceed to never say where you actually got the idea from, you could. Please don't. But at the very least, like, if you're like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, cool, I want to make something for you. Ooh, but what if he doesn't like it? To me, any fan art is better than no fan art, and I guarantee you, you can always draw better than I can. Now, possibly asked, a bit negative question is, do you actually think this show is good? Eh, like, obviously, you are your own worst critic, and as much as I would, like, glaze some of the shows, I still feel like overall, this is kind of a sorry excuse for a form of entertainment, at least from me. Other people have shown deep interest and enjoyment out of it. However, I'm one to think negatively about things I do because I I like over humble myself at times. Like I say like, "Oh, it's not the best in the world." But then I'll continue going like, "Oh, it's actually really terrible and you should hate it too." But people genuinely like it, so I take their word for it less than mine, but ultimately, if I think it's good, matters less than if you think it's good. Another possibly asked question is, why did I post these in the first place? Because as much as I could have just kept this in a hard drive, never to see the light of day again, I wanted to kind of share my creativity, my brain, my work, my passion, stuff like that. And ultimately, like, I wanted to offer people something new. To my knowledge, no one has ever done something like this ever before. So I thought it would be potentially unique enough to gain some attention, but it's like hour long episodes that have no visuals, so whether I get more than like 5 views or if I'm somehow getting over 1 million views, that really depends on the algorithm. Um, but ultimately, it would make me think that if people really do enjoy this, especially like on a wild, wild place like YouTube, then potentially I have a chance in the actual like career market. Which, speaking of careers, would I consider doing voice work? I don't know, because I'm not entirely confident in my own voice acting. I haven't really done any voice acting till this show. And even then, it's like, without someone telling me, I want you to try to do this character that I created, I don't really have any, like. Obviously, the show is the only thing you can go off of. I mean, doing what I'm doing now isn't voice acting, it's just me talking. And not all voice work is playing a character. I could do like some kind of voiceover for a toothpaste commercial with one of my other voices that I don't usually naturally talk like, but it it's still one of those things where it's up to others if they like my voice and want it to be used elsewhere, or if they think my voice is terrible and don't want to hear it ever again, which is fair. Okay, so another question that probably would be asked is how would I personally rank the episodes? All right, so if we're going for all nine of them, this is how I would go from least favorite. So, not really in the sense of like which one I think was the best made, but more like what I personally find like my actual favorite versus the ones that um, I think are absolutely garbage and no one should like. Okay, it's a bit unfair, but essentially more on the sense of like the bottom of the list would be the ones I feel are probably going to turn people off to the entire like show itself, and then the highest ones are probably the ones where people would be like, "Oh, this actually seems kind of good." Hopefully. So, starting with the absolute worst, or at least what I think is the absolute worst. A lot of people would expect it to be the first one, but I'm giving it a little bit of credit because it needed to be bad for me to make it eventually good, or at least better. So I'm actually going to say the worst one, in my opinion, is the second show. I just feel like, though I got the structure better, I was still making kind of like mistakes that I should have already learned from in the first time. Now, again, it was only the second one, so I still needed to do this a little bit more to really get my foot in the ground. But I just, with me, I feel like the biggest takeaway I want everyone to get from these is the story. Now, if you just like them because you like to see what songs I choose, that's perfectly fair. But if you were to like judge every story, I feel like you'd be like, what is this? Why did you actually put this in a Google Doc and say it in front of many, many people? The story just, it really needed a lot more to it, which I did not give it its justice with. So that's why it's at the bottom of the list. Now, following it, as much as I tried to give it a leeway, it's not enough of a leeway to put show one at number two. Unfortunately, as much as I really, really, really want to give it a break for it being the first show, the first, like, where I'm actually starting from, it still does not excuse a lot of the mistakes I was making. At least to me. This sounds like something that if this was the only show uploaded, you would be like, no, don't make another. But since I have made the rest of them, this one gets heavily overshadowed, especially considering that I know that I eventually get much better at it. So, as much as I want to apologize to it, I also cannot forgive the fact that it is the first and the worst. Not as bad as number two, though, of course. Now, number three, we're actually skipping a couple shows and going straight to show five. Unfortunately, the inclusion of Xander was a huge hindrance to kind of like the natural flow of the show. So it got to the point where the whole voice amalgamation thing and the whole like lower energy just, it was a lot more better structured and I was making lesser mistakes, but it was still like I really should have either used someone else to tell the story and create Xander as kind of like a side character, or I should have like slowly introduced Xander more so that way I got more used to his voice. But I mean, especially with this being show 5, it feels like I should have already have fixed these mistakes, but as much as I wanted to, this it's still better than the first two, but with it being the fifth show, this is kind of a sad excuse. Now, for number 4, I'm kind of split between two of them, but I feel like the one I would put in the fourth category might actually be show 6. Like, as much as, like, I want to say, like, well, the beginning's a bit stronger, I I feel like it's not exactly strong enough to overshadow the time mess up at the end. So it's literally as simple as if I didn't mess up the time, it would easily be in like top 3, maybe, for me at least. But then following it is show 9 in number 5. Mainly because like this one just kind of felt like I wanted to get it done as much as possible, and I didn't really do too much to really craft it into anything. This was just, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. We're kind of done. Goodbye, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much how I felt about show 9. Many other people might not get that same feeling, but that's at least for me how I felt about it. Okay, now for show number 6, almost at the top 3, but not quite. I would have to give it to show 3. Mainly because this was a much better rendition of the original idea, and I really liked the story I chose and the energy I put behind it. And with the confidence boost, that really kind of showed. Unfortunately, it's not like in two, or I mean, in the top 3 because it still has mistakes and it's one of my earlier shows. So that's the kind of biggest hindrance with it, but it still didn't do as bad as like the whole time rush thing. So that's why it is just shy from top 3. But speaking of which, now in the actual top 3, starting with number 7, I would have to give it to possibly, like if I'm comparing the two to each other, I'd give it to show 4. This one to me just actually felt a lot more like in depth to like this one to me like it had the original idea but kind of reinvented it. So now I'm doing the music with the slower chiller guy and I'm doing the story with the more hyped up peppy guy, which to me kind of worked a lot better, especially considering that I actually like this story a bit more, but that's just me. Not like I'm trying to outrank each story, because I'm pretty sure show number 2, like if the story was in its full length, would completely knock the others out of the park. But at least with this one, that's why it's only in third place, because it does still have its mistakes, and I don't feel like it's quite as good as some of the later ones, especially with like the chemistry between DJ and Crawton. So that's why for me, number 2 is surprisingly going to be show number 8. As much as it's like, really personal to me with the whole dog thing, I feel like this show has its issues with the me not really blending well with my teacher. Like, I really did like performing with him, but this would have been the kind of thing that I would have done like at the beginning and then slowly learned how to do it again later. But because I did it so far at the end, I didn't really have any practice with it, and so it doesn't work as well. Now, most or some people might actually put this as their number 1, perhaps, but because of the whole dog thing, but that's also kind of why I don't want to put it at number 1, because I feel like that's kind of cheating in a way. Like, if I'm rating it purely based off of the skill I believe I had in them, I feel like this one's really good, but it's not the number 1, which, if you haven't been keeping track of, is show 7. This is the one where I genuinely feel like I did not make as much mistakes. The chemistry between the characters were as good as can be, and I really liked like the different song picks I did. Kind of a weirder thing, but it's kind of as I said, this would probably be the show I would actually put in like a portfolio, which is why I think it's my best show. But it's still one of those things where um when it comes to like the entire series itself, I'm not sure it would hold up if I were to remaster the shows, because especially if I'm just not keeping up that same original energy. And then lastly, am I going to am I going to post more content? No. The simple answer, no. This is treated like a public internet archive that I am in control of, not a just casual YouTube channel that I constantly like update. Everything that I want you to see will be posted like day one as soon as like it's up. Like it might take a little bit of time for me to upload everything in one sitting, but everything that I want people to see should already be there. The only new thing you'll see is like comments, maybe like I may or may not, depending, have already posted like in the community post tab how I wanted all the characters to look like, at least in my head. Um, at least that Hero Forge will allow me to. Or maybe I'll even like post my scripts where I'm like, okay, this is what was supposed to be said in the script versus, what I actually said in the show. So we'll just have to see. But if you're also saying like maybe not the deep end, but what I consider making like some other kind of channel, not really. Like I've tried doing YouTube before. It didn't really work out for me. It just didn't feel right. I don't know if I could actually do it as a genuine job. And with me, it's more like I'm more of a like when it comes to gaming channels, I'm more the person who prefers single player games. And unfortunately, single player games are one of those things that people tend to watch once and once only. So I don't think I would have even a remotely popular gaming channel, nor do I think people would actually want to hear more of me. At least in something other than like Deep End or other stories of mine related. And with that, that is the end of the possibly asked questions. If one of my questions was not one of the questions you had, then possibly put it in the comments down below. And I will possibly, definitely, answer it as soon as I can. And with that, you have yourself a great day.